don't know if you got did anybody see the interview with Joey Crack on Champs? Did y'all get a chance to watch it?
No, I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I watched the clip. I watched clips.
Okay, it's a pretty good interview.
It's hard for me to watch an entire episode of Drink Champs.
Don't get me started, man, because I want to big up. The artists that they have are like legendary, so I want to hear the stories and stuff like that. And they're great guests, but Nori sometimes, man, it's just tough, man. It's just tough. It's just tough to kind of follow that. The stories be so cold, and then randomly he'll be like, "Make some noise." I'm like, all right, so let me retrace this Big Pun story again and try to remember where he left off at, like that type of thing. But Fat Joe has been getting dragged on Twitter for a comment that he made in regards to DJ Khaled, and I'm gonna read the quote. We can kind of go into it. He says, "People take away the greatness from Khaled." This is Fat Joe talking to Nori and DJ EFN. They say, well, he just gets a bunch of big time rappers and puts them on the same song. There's a million DJs and producers that try that, and those ain't hit records. It's been a long time since we've heard Nas and Jay-Z on what to me sounds like a smash hit. It's a smash hit. They can play it on the radio. It's streaming incredibly. So Khaled really is the Quincy Jones of hip hop right now. So Lone brought it to my attention that he doubled down. He doubled down on the comments and tried to provide more explanation. He said, all these backseat drivers, Monday morning quarterbacks, always got an opinion but can't do it themselves. It's crazy. The term Quincy Jones of this time was used to reference to the work Khaled has put in over the years of hits. Obviously, there's only one Quincy. But F that. So that's what Fat Joe said when people started to try to get on him about that. We all know that, and y'all can talk about it if you want, how ridiculous that statement is. Because I think that's ridiculous in my personal opinion. Is there an equivalent to Quincy in hip hop from a production, talent?
Pharrell will be the closest.
Albums. Oh, go ahead.
Pharrell will be the closest.
Said Pharrell? That's your vote?
He would be the closest. He would be the closest in my personal opinion.
How do you say that?
Why? Because Pharrell can work with any and everybody, and it doesn't have to just be hip hop. And he's actually conducting and composing music. Versus you have DJ Khaled, that is pretty much a glorified AR. He's getting the top artists that are popping over the last year. He's getting tracks to them. He's not necessarily producing those tracks. He's sending them a track and hyping it up as soon as he gets the track back and putting it on his album. Mind you, he puts out an album every year. So he is consistent. He is consistent as far as that's concerned. When you're talking about a Quincy Jones, I mean, Quincy Jones was a mastermind. I mean, and he had other musicians working with him too as well. Don't get me wrong, but he was behind the scenes curating and putting his own touch and things like that. He was actually there. Versus Khaled, he's telling you he's sending people stuff and they're sending it back to him. He's not there making that magic happen. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost a smack in the face to other hip hop artists. Timbaland's one too. If you want to keep it above,
Dre.
I mean, Dre definitely. They're the equivalent to a Quincy Jones, in my personal opinion, when you're talking about hip hop collaborations and composing music versus just sending somebody a track and then plugging in somebody else's verse. I mean, he's creating magic on some of these tracks, but in the same token, it's not Thriller, it's not Off the Wall, it's not even Back on the Block level Quincy Jones stuff.
It's not Q's Juke Joint. It's not The Dude. It's not anything. Come on, it's nothing. You know what? I got to give Fat Joe props for having that much that high
loyalty?
of Yeah, for caring about his friend that much to say it, but it's delusional and it's wrong. There's just no way.
Disrespectful.
It's
Talk
yeah.
to him, Mo.
Yes, you're being supportive of your friend, but you are denigrating the legacy of a one Quincy Jones to compare him to DJ Khaled. DJ Khaled is, he's figured out a way out of no way, but like, let's just keep it real. This dude puts his name on like your homework right before you turn it in. And it's not, Quincy Jones literally made something out of nothing. He started with nothing and created Thriller. He knew who to bring in his songwriters. He knew exactly where to turn this and turn that. I mean, yes, that's cool that Khaled has a Jay-Z and Nas, but like, it's about a relationship, not an actual artistic endeavor that created, that magic. And honestly, don't get me wrong, I think it's a good record, but don't tell me about how it's streaming crazy and about how I'm in the clubs. We're not playing that record. We're not really playing any of these records except for the Drake record that came out a long time ago. And in this, he's playing. Look, I would never see Quincy Jones get upset that somebody album came out and it did better than mine. Like when he acted up when Tyler the Creator's album beat his on Billboard. He's not from that cloth. Shout out to Fat Joe for being such a good friend, but please don't denigrate and disregard and dismiss and be disrespectful of Quincy Jones' legacy by saying this out and doubling down on it makes it even worse.
Yeah, 100%. And
not to mention who has. Bad.
Go ahead, Long.
You can go ahead, Terry. I mean, you
sorry, I was a little excited.
You can go ahead
because it pisses me off. But no, he hasn't broke anybody. I mean, he tried with Ace Hood.
Ace
Hood he don't even rock with Ace Hood no more. When you talk about Quincy Jones broke 𝗏𝗄𝘗, he broke Tevin Campbell. You know what I'm saying? He broke dope artists and provided some of the best music for generations to come. So yeah, there you go. My bad.
Look, let's just be clear. Quincy Jones is, he produced Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. Like, there's nothing you could take the best songs from every DJ Khaled album, and it's not touching even half of one of those. As far as cultural impact, as far as commercial impact, just as far as impact. So once again, Fat Joe, you're a good friend, but
he's a very good friend. Long, jump in. I don't want you to lose your train of thought.
What I was going to say is the difference between Quincy Jones and Khaled is just the music. Like, Khaled is chasing number ones. Khaled is, if we're going to do any comparison, Quincy is closer to Diddy than he is Quincy Jones. But Quincy was about the music, and it just so happened
Khaled's closer to Diddy than
closer to Diddy. He's in the studio, he's picking the samples out. He's organizing stuff like that. But like to compare it to Quincy is just disrespecting Quincy Jones and people that, us that like know what Khaled's doing or whatever his name is.
Khaled.
Whatever.
Nobody that cares about the music, like legitimately cares about the music, is going to get upset at Tyler Creative's spectacular project that comes out at the same time. Like, you're not going to get upset at that.
It is what it is, dog. Like, he put out a dope project. It came out around the same time. I'm not trying to hear about counting stream. Oh yeah, same week.
Supposed to welcome.
Right.
It was the same week, but you're supposed to welcome that. If your product is that good, you shouldn't care what comes out on the same day that your album comes out on. Fabulous, his debut album dropped the same day as The Blueprint. Unfortunate for him. I mean, it's lucky that he's still around and still doing okay. His soul tapes was off the wall. But, I mean, he dropped his debut the same day as Jay-Z. I mean, 50 Cent and Kanye went head to head in one of the most talked about release dates in history as far as hip hop is concerned.
That was marketing genius right there, by the way, too. Definitely. I remember that. It was on Six and Park, all that. Yeah.
If your product is standing on something, you shouldn't be afraid to go up against anybody. Drop it.
Yeah. The thing, like all of you,
especially when you're the favorite.
Yeah.
That's the point. Like
you're mad at Tyler because he's like the runner up and he's like surpassing you. Like that just speaks more to you're failing at your specific, like his only goal. You know, like he's only doing. I swear, like I'm saying, like Khaled only does this for #1 records. That's the only reason he's doing this. Like
I really believe that, Lone. Like I really believe that he's content with album going #1 for the first week, and then everything else that happens out after that. Like we talked about Silk Sonic a while back. We talked about more brought up the point about records having longevity and being able to stay on the charts consistently. Like I don't think fam cares about that. Like I think long as he can say another one and he had a #1 album, I really don't think he cares about the budget, the 65 features, the producers he got to pay.
I agree.
Like, mission accomplished. Like I got another #1 album that ain't nobody gonna care about in 6 to 8 months, 4 to 6 months. You know what I mean? I think he's content with
every time.
I think he's content with that. I think he's literally content with that though, just to be able to say I got a #1 album. Yeah, and we spent 3/4 of the budget.
Puts out an album and it's all new artists, and he's able to get people to care about people we've never heard of before, or people who are just.
Then I'll pay attention.
Then I'll pay attention. But when you go out and get Nas and Jay-Z and Rihanna and Justin Bieber, I'm sorry,
to be #1.
Drake.
That is supposed to be #1.
So Fat Joe, a big portion of his comment was in relation to. There are a lot of DJs and producers, but everybody can't pull this off. Say like they can't take the #1 hits.
If I had the relationships that DJ Khaled had,
those though, does he get credit?
Then
for
I
building
could pull
those?
that off. If you had the relationships, if everybody that I know had the relationship that DJ Khaled had.
The relationships,
you know what I mean? Like,
and the money to be able to pay these
it's
artists.
Just let's just keep it real. Like he was a DJ for a very long time in Miami, right? And he built those relationships. So he's got the connections. Take away his connections, he's just a bum.
We give him P. Do we give him P's for?
He's a DJ. He is a pretty dope DJ,
those.
But
Do we give him P's for? Building and nurturing those relationships to get to the point where he can just make that call and they're going to send the verse back. Do we give him peace for that?
At this point in his career?
They need him like he needs them and they need him. So, okay. I mean, no, we don't give him those props. All right. Come on, man. Like, don't get me wrong. It's as great as Michael Jackson was as a member of the Jackson 5s and then subsequently the Jacksons.
Yeah.
Look, people were not knocking down his door to work with him as a solo artist. Like, it really was a thing where they cultivated, and we can want to talk about relationships. They cultivated a relationship when Quincy Jones was doing The Wiz. And then it was like, well, I'm looking for producers. And Quincy Jones is like, hey, I'd love to. And, he was known as a jazz dude, not as somebody who could do, disco pop music, which was R&B, which was what was popping at the time, so really, at that point, Michael Jackson really was kind of an underdog, that Quincy Jones on and created a masterpiece.
Let's talk about this too, though.
I just got frustrated, low key, though. I just got frustrated because, and Terry, I'm coming right back to you. Mm-hmm. I just got frustrated because just thought about something when you said a jazz musician. Like, Quincy Jones, like, he wrote charts. Like, you can actually see him writing charts, like writing, what a chart is. Like he's writing charts with time signatures and bass clefs and all that other stuff, writing the French horn part and the clarinet part and the trombone part or whatever. Like, I just got mad frustrated because it's laughable to compare. He's a composer. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry. I had to get that off my chest. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We didn't even mention the fact that Quincy Jones single-handedly revived Fresh Prince, Will Smith, by giving him the opportunity, somebody who had never acted before, to star in his own TV show when he was broke. And he'll tell you that story. Not to mention created one of the highly renowned publications in the 90s, Vibe magazine. I mean, we're talking about somebody that's full of accolades. and we're comparing them, DJ Khaled to Quincy Jones. That's what
He's got
a whole documentary on Netflix. I suggest everyone who wants to really know about Quincy Jones,
it is amazing,
and it'll basically show you why it's such a silly thing to compare DJ Khaled to Quincy Jones.
I want friends like Fat Joe, because that
you know what
riding
though
for his home.
you know what though, like knowing Fat Joe and listening to his takes on, like, it doesn't even surprise me. Like, Joe says some dumb stuff too, so this is, I mean, a lot of dumb stuff. So
Joe trying to get on the next album. That's what he's trying to do.
Exactly. He's the best. He is the best friend you could have, because he's going to tell you are the best at whatever you do, even if he knows it's not true.
If you've enjoyed this segment of the New Old Heads podcast, make sure to join our live show every Tuesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/newoldheads. And we invite you to join our hip hop community on Discord. Access it by going to newoldheads.com/community for talks on hip hop, sports, music, news, and everything else.